Welcome to Winning Hand, the podcast about Marvel Champions, one card at a time. I am your host, Boomguy. I am here today with Kaeko.
The other host.
What? The other host?
The
What's
truest
up?
host.
That's debatable. If this is your first time here, welcome. We hope you enjoy the podcast. If you are a returning listener, please take a minute and review the podcast. Leave a comment. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That would be great. Or review us on whatever podcatcher you're on. But Apple Podcast is kind of the big one. And I know about 40 to 45% of you, statistically, are listening on Apple Podcasts. And not that many of you have left reviews. So if you wouldn't mind taking 30 seconds, leave a 5-star, leave a review. It only takes a few seconds, but it does help the podcast a lot.
And if you do leave a 1 or 2-star review, please let us know why. It's because Boomer kind of ruins it all.
Yeah, if you leave a 1 or 2-star review, why are you listening to this podcast? You have probably better ways to spend your time. So go enjoy a podcast you actually enjoy.
1v1 me.
Yeah, come at me, bro. All right, moving on from that, we are going to get right into the episode today. We're going to talk about what we've been playing recently. And Kaeko, why don't you go first? What have you been playing recently?
Sure. So these have been out for a while. So I played X-23 recently. It's been a couple of months at this point, but you, me, and Titan have not made it a secret where we're not really a big fan of the X-Men or the X-Men adjacent characters. They're just not really of interest. But I was a little interested in X-23. Back when the X-Men wave was coming out, I was a little interested in Wolverine, right? He's kind of like the iconic X-Man. So I was like, okay, I'll play Wolverine if we're getting the X-Men. But I just couldn't get into him. I don't know. I don't know what it is. First off, I have huge trouble keeping track of healing at the start of my turn.
Yeah.
Actually, you are usually the one who has to remind me every single time. I don't know why I have such trouble with it. But I played him a few times. It's only been in aggression. I figured that was the best aspect for him. I don't know. Maybe that's on me for not experimenting, but I just couldn't get into him. But X-23, I figured would be what I hoped Wolverine was, right? She herself is kind of that pseudo-Wolverine, which maybe for diehard fans that maybe frustrates you to hear, but that's kind of my mindset of it. She is also pre-con aggression, and she actually worked out really well for me. I had a lot of fun playing her. I played her a couple of times, actually. I played the pre-con the first time. That's usually how I like to start playing new heroes. And then I built her a little bit on the second go. But I did go with 50 cards, of course. That's kind of my signature. But
that's your thing.
Yep. I don't think for her specifically as one of those heroes that she needs 40 cards. So, But
did you stay with aggression or would you mix it up?
I stayed with aggression. I basically just built off of the pre-con. But she has a lot of good signature cards. Like they all really speak to each other really well. Well, first off for her, I have the cards in front of me. First off, for her, anytime she takes any amount of damage, she readies. So
once per phase. Once per phase,
yes. So she has her claws, which are permanent. You can exhaust them to damage yourself, add to attack to her. And pain tolerance specifically is you put it into play. It's an upgrade. After you play any X-23 card, you heal her 1, including pain tolerance and self.
Oh, okay.
So essentially, at least how I assume it works, is that you heal twice for every signature card that you play. And I'm not entirely sure if there's a card out there that interrupts a heal. So I think it helps that you heal twice, right? Instead of healing 2 hit points at once.
Wait, why do you heal twice?
Because when you put pain tolerance out and then you play a signature card, you heal 1 for playing that card, and then you heal another for playing pain tolerance, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think essentially you heal twice. But again, she has really good signature cards. She has Honey Badger, which every time Honey Badger takes the damage, you ready X-23. So her whole thing is that you damage her to ready her. And she has a lot of cards that heal her, of course, which keeps her in play, which works for my play style because I don't like to defend. I like to take damage. But because she readies when she's damaged, it gives me more of an incentive to defend.
Yeah.
At face value, she has 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense. So looking at her, you're probably like, I want to build on a thwart or build on a defense. You really don't want to build on a defense because you want to take damage. And you don't really have to build on her tolerance because she has a card that when she thwarts, you add her attack. Not
Mm.
in place of, you add her attack.
Mm.
So you kind of want to build on her attack to keep readying, attacking, and then when it's the villain's turn, you pretty much have a free defense. You virtually are guaranteed a free defense and then ready
Yeah.
up again. So she was really fun for me.
It's kind of like the Drax playstyle where you're going to want to just ready and attack and boost your attack over and over again, which I've seen used to great effect. So I will say, I still have not played X23. I know it's been a while. I don't usually get around to the new ones that quickly.
And again, we're not really a big fan of like the X-Men, so the excitement wasn't really, yeah.
Yeah. But generally, like when new heroes come out, I get them all when they come out, and I wait a little while till the dust settles. So looking at pain tolerance, I don't think you heal twice. I think you heal every time you play an X23 card, but it's kind of like Sky Destroyer, where when you play pain tolerance onto the table, because it's an upgrade, it stays out, you heal 1 for that card, and then every time you play a card thereafter, you heal 1 for that card. I don't think you heal 2.
Okay, yeah, because the way it's worded kind of threw me off. So maybe I was playing it wrong, but yeah, it was like every time you play an X23 card, including this one,
Right.
heal 1 damage from your identity.
But you only play it that one time, so then I think it's out, and you're not playing it every single
Got
time.
it.
So you just
Okay.
play 1 card.
Yeah, because the whole wording with put into play and then just play
Yes.
kind of throws me off.
Yeah, the wording can be tricky. I think it is worded a little oddly, so when it says including this one, but still, healing 1 every time I play a card is good because she
every
wants
time
to
you play
take
signature.
damage to ready.
Yep.
My first thought with her, although I've not played her, is to play her in leadership because, first of all, there's all these upgrades that you can put on Honey Badger to kind of leave her out and boost her, which is kind of a cool like Voltron style build. But the first card that came to mind with X23 was Clarity of Purpose, which is a 1 cost upgrade where you essentially deal a damage to your hero and generate a wild resource. It's essentially Venom's power, but as a card.
Okay.
So, you take a damage, which readies X23 and also generates a resource. So that immediately felt kind of like a synergy to me.
Yep. Which she does have as a signature card, Grim Resolve, which is exactly that.
Oh man, you could do it twice even then. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But yeah. I've not played X23. I've not played X23 or Deadpool, quite frankly. So
yeah, I haven't really been excited for Deadpool either. I was excited for him when he was announced, like everyone else, but after I read his cards, I was like, I don't know.
Well, not like everyone else. I was kind of cold on Deadpool from the start, and I know some people are yelling at their phone and smashing their AirPods in the ground. The character doesn't do anything for me thematically. I think Deadpool's kind of a tired joke. I think the movies have worn out their welcome, and I just don't care. Like, it's not funny to me, and his cards all just seemed kind of like blah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the pool aspect in general.
Oh, the pool aspect is another conversation entirely.
Yeah.
But
which
the
we'll
Cliff
get to.
Notes version is I'm not into it.
No.
Yeah, we'll get there. I'm sure we'll talk about pool cards.
Mm-hmm. But overall, where Wolverine to me was kind of high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
But I was really bad at managing that. X23 is kind of small risk, small reward, which was a lot better for me to balance.
Yeah, I think X23 looks like what Wolverine should have been. I don't know what it is about Wolverine, but I agree with you. It didn't work for me. I just don't love Wolverine. I can't tell you exactly why that is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either, yeah.
But I played a few times, and every time I've just felt like, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah,
the character's cool. So then I think like, oh, I haven't played it in a while. I'll pull it out, and I look through the cards, and I'm just like, nah, put it back, play something else.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt with him.
Yeah.
Overall with the X-Men, I was like, he's the X-Men guy, but
yeah. I don't know why that is. If you're listening and you can explain to me why that is, if you have, maybe you can teach me or explain to me why Wolverine is awesome, or you can help me put into words why Wolverine is not awesome, please send an email, winninghandpodcast@gmail.com, or put a note on our YouTube, drop a comment on one of our Instagram. winning hand.
And let me know if pain tolerance also threw you off. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point. I still think
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite cards in general. So
yeah, it's cool. She's got some cool cards actually. So, no, that's cool. X-23 is the one I was probably most excited about in that kind of second half of the X-Force wave. So I will get to her. I just haven't done it yet. Loyal, longtime listeners, which are my favorite, will remember that last episode we had the Brant on and we talked about Bring It, the zero cost event. I revisited Vision with the deck that Brant built, and we talked about last time Vision, the intangible minion collector. It's linked in the comment of that episode if you want to go look at it. Anyway, he inspired me because he said he had drawn 17 cards as the most he's ever drawn with Bring It, which is an incredible haul, and I didn't think was possible. So I decided, let's see how many I can draw. So I went back. I've been playing a lot of Vision. I'm on kind of a larger quest, which I'll talk about when I get to the end of it. I'm playing him through the entire set of villains in order that we have so far. So starting with Rhino, going all the way to the end. So I'm doing kind of a mega campaign in True Solo with Vision. Anyway, I played him a few rounds with Aggression in the Bring It deck. And man, the deck's a lot of fun. We were not lying last episode when we said that was the case. But I managed to draw even more cards than Brant did. I played Mutagen formula. So Green Goblin, and he pulls out a ton of Goblin minions, which are helpful. And none of them have, or most of them don't have more than one attack or two attacks. So you can just let them sit there. They don't hurt you in intangible form. But what really helped me was I drew Ultron, Shadows of the Past, on turn 1. So Ultron was out there sitting in front of me. He also only does 2. Every time he attacks you, though, you put the top card of your deck in front of you as a drone minion, which is a 1/1, minion, 1 health. So those started piling up and piling up. So I'm pulling out all these goblins. Every time Ultron attacks me, I'm putting out another card in front of me, one of my own deck. So I'm losing cards. I managed to draw 20 cards with Bring It one time.
that is actually
Um,
insane.
it was
That
pretty crazy, and you have all these minions in front of you, and I'm just play Bring It and draw 20 cards. Now, eventually, at some point, you have to pivot and start doing stuff, right? So I had Bombs Away in my deck as one of the way to clear those things out. I also put Dive Bomb into my deck as a way to, when you're ready to start doing damage, it's the way you clear out all those minions. Luckily, enough of them have guard or patrol, so you can kind of keep things under control. But it was super fun. I drew 20 cards, and then I started killing stuff to win the game. But so, Brant, if you're listening, and I know you are, I've beaten your record, and I'm now throwing the gauntlet down on you to draw more than 20. And if you would like to do it on stream, I'll do it with you. We'll play it live together, see who can do it. That's a challenge from me to you, Brant.
speed run, bring it on.
Yeah.
Vision, or not even Vision, but just how many cards can you draw?
Yeah. How many cards can you draw? We'll play a couple rounds and see what we can do. I know Brant does listen, and thanks again, Brant, if you are listening, for being on the episode last time. That was really great. So anyway, that's what I've been playing. A lot of Vision, but I just wanted to call back because we did talk about Bring It last episode. I wanted to kind of circle back to that and show off, first of all, because, 20 cards, that's crazy. But also just let everyone know. If you've never listened to the podcast before, you may be unfamiliar with the fact that I am wild about Vision. I'm the only one. But yeah, play Vision.
Yeah, if there's any fans out there as loyal to us as Boomer is to Vision, let us know.
Couldn't be. They don't exist.
But you
All
didn't
right.
have any problem dealing with acceleration tokens. I would imagine you've been decking yourself a lot with Ultron putting out
Yeah.
minions, yourself drawing. That wasn't an issue
Yeah.
at all.
No, it wasn't too bad. I mean, because Ultron came out turn 1, it very quickly kind of started to get a lot of minions in front of me. And you have a little bit of acceleration, but he can thwart. I had thwart cards in there, and I was thwarting with my basic thwart every time. And with Reboot, you can ready yourself and thwart multiple times. So I kept it in check pretty well. The problem is if you ever get your NEM or your obligation, then you can't flip, because if you flip, then they all scheme and you immediately scheme out and lose the game.
Oh, right.
So there is some danger, and we did talk about that last episode. If you want to listen to a discussion at greater length, you can go back and look at that. But basically, if you flip down, right, if you're in hero form and intangible, they all attack for 1 and it doesn't matter. If you flip down to alter ego, they all scheme, and suddenly they all scheme for 20 times, right? For 1, and you just lose. So you do have to be careful, because when the obligation comes out, you get a little screwed. So it's a little playing with fire, which is fun.
A lot of risk, a lot of reward for what we've been talking about.
20 cards, let's go, baby. If you've drawn more than that, please send me an email, drop a comment, as I mentioned before, because I'd love to hear it.
And
All
also,
right,
if you have
so
drawn more than that, stop lying.
yeah, you haven't. Don't lie to me. Let's pivot to the question of the day.
Okay.
So we got a question from a listener, and he or she asked this: would you recommend this game being Marvel Champions, to
Yes.
someone who doesn't want to build decks and just wants to either play the precons or keep their decks together just so they can pull them out and play and they don't have to do any deck construction?
Ooh, that
What do
is
you
a good
think?
question. I would say yes, 100%.
Okay.
So I think that's one of the strengths with this game is that there are at least 60% of these heroes are pre-built,
Yeah.
right? And it's a lot of the heavy hitting heroes too, the ones that are most likely popular.
Well, 100% are pre-built.
Because I think there's a couple in the expansions that are just kind of identity built, but they don't really have their own aspects. I think the core box they're just kind of laid out. I think Spider-Man and Captain Marvel are the only ones that are built.
No, they all come with precons. They
Do
for sure
they?
do.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
either way, that is one of the strengths is that they are pre-built.
Yep.
So and you could just play them just like that. I mean, that's usually what I do fresh out of the box is to play them. That way I can
Yeah.
kind of see what that hero was meant to do, and then I personally build off of it. But the other thing too is that you have the freedom to build off of them, and you don't even have to be good at it. I'm kind of notorious for building awful decks, but I try because I want to see where it goes. But if
Yeah.
you ever did want to go back, all of them conveniently have a card that lists what their precon was.
Yes.
So if it doesn't work out, you just kind of go back, build, and but yeah, you can take them out of the box and just play them just as is. And I think that is the biggest strength of Marvel Champions.
Yeah, you do play a lot of precons, I've noticed. You'll keep them together, or you'll build the precons again, like you said a minute ago. You'll take them apart and try something different and go back to the precon. I generally don't play precons that much. Sometimes I will play them through just initially when they first come out, just to kind of try the precons. Let's see. Cable and Domino were probably the last ones. When they came out with the big box, I just pulled out the precons and I sleeved them up and played them through the campaign together as a two-handed solo. But before that, I think I just buy them, open them up, and I immediately sleeve them and take them apart and just file the cards away wherever they go. I don't know. I think for a while, precons, some of them were pretty bad, and I had a couple bad experiences and just felt like this isn't super fun. And I also like building the decks, so that's something I enjoy. But to the question, would I recommend the game to someone who doesn't ever want to build decks? Yes, I think, because the game is great, but I would definitely asterisk that and say you're missing, I think, the full extent of the game. Like, the game is fun, the mechanics are good, they do come pre-built, which is a benefit of this game as opposed to other LCGs from Fantasy Flight. But I do think you're missing, 40, 50% of the game, which is, you're playing these heroes, but you're building your deck into what you want the deck to do. You're looking through your collection and putting cards into a way that you think is going to be able to do something cool, whether you're looking for a specific combo or building a thematic deck or whatever. I just think you're missing a lot of the game. I think you could still enjoy it. It might be great, but I do think you're missing out somewhat.
I would agree with that. I think again, like we've been saying, for sure you can play it as is, but
Yeah.
it is worthwhile to kind of build off of it because that's how you make the decks you, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever theme you're going for. Like my very, very first deck was a Spider-Woman Spider-Verse deck. It was all spiders. It wasn't good. It wasn't balanced at all, but it made it fun for me and it kind of got me into the game in general. And again, building off of the precons, right? They're pre-built 40 cards. you can just add 10 cards if you wanted to, and that's a built deck in a sense where
Yeah.
you can swap out cards. There's just the freedom to it and the flexibility for it, which again adds on to that strength. But I think it is definitely worthwhile to just kind of experiment with it. And again, you can always just go back if things don't work out.
Yeah, I mean, even like very basically, even some of the heroes just come with precons that just have too many copies of a card. Like the X-23 precon, I think comes with 3 copies of Endurance,
Yes,
which you
which
can
I
only
did
have
take
one
out.
of.
Yeah,
Like that's an easy fix. You just pull out 2 copies of Endurance and put in 2 of whatever.
exactly.
Um, but I just think one of the strengths of the game is that you can go to the store and you might see some people sitting. There's a game group that meets regularly, and this has happened to me in my game group. You see them sitting there and you think this is cool. You can literally walk to the counter, pull your favorite hero, buy them right there, unshrink it, and start playing. And I've seen people do that. We had a guy who joined, huge Scarlet Witch fan. He just walked over, bought Scarlet Witch at the counter, unshrinked it, and started playing. No sleeves or anything. And that's good enough. Like you can learn the game and you can play it right there.
Yes, because
I just,
inevitably, you will find cards,
yeah,
other basic cards, aspect cards that you will like, and you're like, I want to add this to a deck, and you do.
yeah.
And
And you go to the con then, or you play with a game group, and then someone brings a Scarlet Witch deck the next week that's not whatever her precon. I think her precon was aggression, but comes with a protection Scarlet Witch deck. And you think, I'd never thought of putting her in that aspect. I've never thought of using these cards together. And you kind of learn new things and new synergies you hadn't thought of. And I think that's when the game really opens up. And I think it's great, 4+ years into the game now, I'm still seeing combinations that I'd never seen before. The
yep.
card pool's expanding. People are doing cool ideas. That's just interesting.
And for the most part, there are enough copies of every card to you can build a deck and leave it as is without having to worry about like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I won't have this card for this deck. I mean, there's very few select cards that are like that, but for the most part, there should be enough copies to make the number of decks that you'd like.
I mean, I see people online posting who say like they keep every single hero with a deck playable. Like they use their card pool to build out, I don't know, 40 or 50, how many heroes there are. They have a deck for everyone built so they can just reach in, pull that hero out, and play. I don't think you're getting the full experience that way. You're playing heroes that are locked in an aspect that way in a certain deck. But like I usually have anywhere from 4 to 8 or 9, 10 decks built at a time because, my mood strikes and I'm like, oh, I want to play this hero or this hero. And then I build them out. I leave it there for a little bit and play them a few times until I'm tired of it and I take it apart.
Yep. So I think ultimately the short answer is yes. The answer is yes. If you don't like
Yeah.
building decks, if you're new to the game, then yes, you can play it as is, but it's definitely worthwhile to take them apart and just kind of experiment with it. Make it you, make it yours.
I mean, this is kind of a weird question to answer. Odds are, if you're listening to a podcast specifically about Marvel Champions, you aren't wondering if you should get into the game, especially if you're on episode 24. But it's interesting to talk about. I think if you are curious about the game and you are listening for whatever reason and you clicked on this podcast and you are brand new and you're not sure if you could jump in, you should jump in and try to find a local game group. Try to find some people who are already playing. I guarantee you, if you stop by their local game shop and there's people playing, they will let you use a deck and just jump in.
And be sure to listen to our other episodes too. We talk about other heroes or other cards that
Yeah.
might interest you in putting in your deck. I mean, I've myself have been interested in some heroes just based on this podcast. So
Yeah. Click that subscribe button, whatever podcatcher you're on. So it's always cool to welcome. I always love when new people stop by. That's super fun. Like you'll be playing with your established game group, or you and I have done this before and we've talked about it on the podcast. We'll be playing in a hotel lobby and someone will walk up and be like, what is this game?
yes,
Ask a few questions and
more
then
than
sit down and
once.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 or 3 times it's happened where people have no idea what we're playing. They stop in and say, hey, can I play? Sure. Jump in. And then we just shuffle up the villain, start over, give them a quick tutorial intro, and you're off and running. And I think it's pretty easy to pick up. If you've played any game of any weight, really, you'll be able to pick it up pretty quick.
I agree.
Now let's jump into the card of the day. The card of the day is Captain Marvel, but not the one you're thinking of if you own the core set. Not that one. The Captain Marvel we're talking about today is the ally. And I hear what you're saying. No, not the leadership one, not the 5 cost. No, not that one. We're talking about Captain Marvel, the signature ally. That's right. Carol Danvers has 3 copies of herself in the game. Keiko, do you want to read the card for us so the
I,
listeners know what the hell I'm even talking about?
of course, I will. So it is Captain Marvel, alter ego Carol Danvers. She is a 4-cost ally. She has 3 health, 2 thwart and attack, 1 consequential damage each. She's traded Avenger, and she has a response. After Captain Marvel uses a basic power, draw 1 card. And she has a flavor text that says, I gotta hand it to you, kid. This is one of the more impressive messes I've ever seen. So, and she herself is a wild resource. And you might be asking
Yeah.
yourself, who is she a signature ally of? It is my personal favorite hero in the entire game, Spider Woman, Jessica Drew.
Wow, your favorite hero?
And in this game, I think so. I think she gives
And
me a lot of flexibility.
we are 24 episodes in. We've not talked about your favorite hero, Keiko?
Yes, I might have in passing mentioned it before. I can't really recall, but I think this Spider Woman to me is kind of my signature hero in this game. I always have it kind of in the topic of the question we answered. She is the one hero I always have a built deck I'm walking around with.
Hmm. As always, let's start with the art. That's what we always start with.
So I think this is kind of the signature Captain Marvel kind of stance and power. She's always doing like some power blast ability.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about Captain Marvel herself.
I
Um,
saw the movie.
yep. Which I think is kind of where everybody is on that. I
Yeah.
hear that generally speaking, Carol Danvers as a character is kind of bland, like even
Mm.
in the comics.
Okay.
But this is
Well, that
kind
tracks with
of
the movie because she's kind of like
it
in
was
all the
kind of
movies.
it's
She's
kind of
kind of like that.
average, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is always what she's doing is those power blasts. Like that's kind of just the iconic Captain Marvel, right? The righteous,
Yeah.
powerful stance.
She
And
has like short hair in this one, but not the mohawk. That's a look she has sometimes. No helmet, and she's got the kind of classic blue, mostly blue suit with the yellow star and the red kind of accents. It's got some kind of a sash, and she's like flying and blasting some kind of yellow energy kind of toward the viewer almost. And you can see her kind of moving and flying, and she's kind of angry about it and shooting a blast, so it looks like it's in anger.
yep. And she's like in the sky, maybe. There's like black
Yeah.
clouds in the sky and
It's
like
like
maybe a
clouds in the
mountain.
background, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. You know, it's kind of this red and yellow color scheme of the card because that's what Jessica Drew's signature cards look like, except some of them are different because they're aspect cards. Different topic. The Jessica Drew face in the bottom corner is good. I'm always picky about those faces, and they're usually better when they're masks
Yes.
versus faces, but she's like a half mask. I think it looks good. I like this face. It's not creepy or weird. So that's a point there. I think the art on this is solid.
I agree. I think it is very solid. Again, it is the Captain Marvel look, but it's
Yeah.
drawn really well. It looks really good. I mean, you
It
can
does look really
feel the
good.
power of Captain Marvel.
This is a card that I wish was full art. I think the half frame does it a disservice. I want a little bit more of it, like bigger,
Yes.
but it looks good.
Yep. And this does have a artist credit, so it is custom for this game for this card. Andrea DeVito and
And
Laura I can never say the last name. I
Valari.
apologize. Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Those two have done a lot of the art, and they're really great. And if for whatever reason they're listening to the podcast, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you. Yeah, I don't know much more to be said about the art, to be honest. I think it's solid. It's clearly Captain Marvel. Like you said, it's kind of her classic pose. Yeah, looks good. But also doesn't blow me away. Like it's not amazing art, but it's decent.
I think it's just picture Captain Marvel, and that's pretty much what this photo is, or what this drawing is.
Yep.
Which isn't to insult the artist at all.
No.
It's just the Captain Marvel pose, the Captain Marvel art.
Okay, so in terms of the theme then, does this feel like Captain Marvel, the theme? What do you think, Keiko?
I guess that's kind of hard to say because, again, like I said, I don't know much about Captain Marvel herself, but I guess thematically to her other cards where she kind of draws upon using her powers, I guess that's thematic in that sense. Because, again, you use either her thwart or her attack, and she draws a card from that, but I don't know how that really ties into her. Again, I don't know much about Captain Marvel, so Maybe
Yeah.
maybe when she
Well,
attacks, she kind of builds her power, and that's what this is.
I mean, the hero Captain Marvel, right, just draws you a card, or the alter ego does. She has a lot of card draw built in. I think, it's a card game where you spend the cards as resources. Nothing makes you feel more powerful than having more cards in your hand. And Captain Marvel is all about kind of that raw power, I think. So she has two thwart, which is great, two attack, which is also great. Only one consequential each is 3 hit points, which is really good. And she draws you a card every time she uses a basic power. That's really good.
Yes.
So she's just really strong. And it's one of those allies that I think I don't mind paying for.
No, I wouldn't either. And especially since the way I build Spider Woman is I add more hit points and attack, so
Yeah.
that's just extra perks to how already great she is.
Yeah, you can really beef her up with some of those attachments for allies, and then she can, you put Sky Cycle on her, and then she can ready herself and do it again. So you can draw multiple cards. You add things to. I'm always bad with card names, but there's the one that gives you extra hit points, some kind of energy suit or skeleton or something. Anyway,
Yeah.
listeners will know. You can correct me. I'm bad with the names, but there's one that gives you extra hit points. You can heal her with first aid or something else. I think this is a really, really, yeah, she's really good. I think thematically, it probably should have been an energy resource rather than a wild resource.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about either. Again, if
But,
somebody could kind of clarify maybe their uh kind of theories on why these choices are the way they are.
yeah. Why is it not an energy resource? Like she's kind of energy, and I just feel like that would have been more appropriate. But
Yeah, because her
maybe
signature
the wild
cards,
resources works better with Spider Woman. I don't
maybe.
know.
And I guess, like you said, you've said this since we started in our early episodes, that probably the strongest move you can make in this game is to draw yourself cards. So I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, like you said, this is kind of her way of showing that true power is the using the most powerful move in the game, drawing yourself cards.
Thwarting for 2 and drawing a card like this is really
That
good.
is.
So I think thematically you feel powerful. I think I can feel it. I feel the power there. What do you think about like fun slash power? Those are always kind of the last two that often get mixed up. The two categories we talk about. So how do you feel about the fun and the power of Captain Marvel?
Well, I think she's a ton of fun. Obviously, I think even people
Yeah.
looking at this face value, 2 attack, 2 thwart, 1 consequential, 3 health, you draw a card each time. You're like, yeah, she's a lot of fun to use, especially when you get the card that you need or a card that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, for anything, seeing that high cost, you're kind of like, when it's in your hand, you're kind of like, I kind of need the
Yeah.
stars to align, especially for someone like me who likes high cost cards in general. So I'm always kind of balancing and fighting on that. But once you do get her out there, you choose to get her out there, and she's most of the time kind of an easy choice to justify putting out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so she's a lot of fun.
I mean, I don't think, to be honest, a lot of Spider Woman decks deal with her. Spider Woman's gimmick is so unique. Not a gimmick, but her whole thing with having two different aspects is so unique. I often feel like that's what decks are built around rather than built around Captain Marvel. But man, this is really a card you can build around. You can do a Voltron style build where you're adding a bunch of upgrades and boosting her attack and her thwart and her hit points and really utilizing her and drawing those cards. But you can also just have it as another card in your deck that's just going to help you cycle through, draw some cards, and do a bunch of damage and thwarting along the way.
Yeah, and actually, now that you point that out, maybe that is kind of the point of Captain Marvel drawing a card for you, because Spider Woman's whole thing is using multiple aspects. Uh,
Yes.
her It's mandatory to build her deck with an even amount of 2 aspects, and she herself has signature cards. I think 2 of each aspect. Well, each of the original 4. Now that we have the pool aspect, and some of her other signature cards allow you to find aspect cards. So I think maybe that's what it is
Mm.
Captain Marvel is trying to get you more of those signature cards, those aspect cards for you to play.
Yeah, I have run decks with Spider Woman where I've run Captain Marvel and Bug and Yondu, for example, and beef up those 3 allies and really let them go to town and they heal themselves or don't take consequential or draw you cards. Just cool ways to kind of build up allies. But I've done a Captain Marvel Voltron deck too. It's fun. Like I just think Captain Marvel is really strong and really fun. and really works well. Now I don't know like in the comics if they're like friends or something because Captain Marvel also has Spider Woman as her signature ally card in the game. So I don't know if there's some connection. Do you know anything about those two?
That's true. That is a good point. No, I don't know anything about that either. Because even Spider Woman, Jessica Drew, I don't know a whole lot about. The only reason I
Yeah.
play her as much as I do is because, again, like I mentioned, the very first deck, it gave me an excuse to have all the spiders together. And now at this point, I have probably my best built deck, but I have no idea why. The two of them are kind of partners in crime
Yeah, I
or
don't
in
know. And they're
heroism.
both Shield, I think, right? Like
Maybe?
traded as
Yeah,
Shield,
because
and they
I
were
think
because yeah,
because Jessica Drew, her obligation is kind of that double agent kind of thing. So
yeah,
maybe, yeah, I don't know if that all has something to do to play with each other with.
because she's traded Shield on her alter ego, and
That's
so
true.
is Captain Marvel. They both are. So maybe
True.
they're in the comics. They work together somehow. I'm not. If you know, listener, please hit me on Discord, email, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. I'd love to know if someone knows.
And
But it's since they both have each other, there must be something.
yes, and I would like to know about that. So yeah, please, if you could leave a comment on that.
Yeah.
And one other thing to add with this, with Captain Marvel, she is traded Avenger, which there are a ton of cards that play into the Avenger trait, which is actually how I built out Spider Woman, was aggression leadership, basically playing on the Avengers trait. So there are a ton of ways to build on her even more.
Because Spider Woman's also an Avenger, I think.
Yes. Yep.
Not a Web Warrior, but an Avenger.
Yep. Because we talked about that where Guardians, as Guardians, like there's really nothing for them. Hell, even from what I've seen, the X-Men and the X-Force, they're kind of weak support cards, but Avengers, they got a lot of crazy stuff for them.
I think there's a lot for the X Men. There's like X Jet and Moira McTaggart and I don't know, X Mansion, Cerebro, Danger Room. I think there's a fair few for X Men and X Force. There's a couple like iPack or whatever it's called, and there's a couple other ones, and some of them cross over because these mutants. I think Guardians are kind of weak, other than CITT. There's not a ton, and Nowhere maybe not a ton of supports, but yeah, Avengers got all those early boost cards, not boost cards, but all those early cards that boosted their um, trait. Yeah, I think Spider Woman's really cool, and she's one of those heroes that has just gotten better as the card pool has grown. And I think that's to be expected since she can borrow from two aspects. She was always going to be really strong throughout the lifespan of the game.
Yeah, and I think
But
that's the other thing too. Kind of in a way, as we get more cards, better cards that you want to add, kind of the more stronger Captain Marvel is because there's more chances of you
yeah,
drawing that card that you want.
yeah, I really want more upgrades on allies. I really think that's a space that they kind of explored briefly, and there was a flurry of upgrades. You know, like I mentioned before, power suit and power gloves and inspired and Sky Cycle. There's a bunch of them. Most of them, if not all of them, are in leadership, I think. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's one of leadership's things that it can
Yep.
do. But I think they kind of stopped. And not to get too off track, but I think that's something that they've done with a number of different things throughout the game that I hope they go back on. I feel like they start an idea and then don't carry it through fully. So upgrades on allies is something I think that we could definitely see more of. And there's a number of other things too. Like I feel like the Asgard trait isn't fully built out. I feel like there's a number of traits that aren't fully built out. Androids, I'm looking at you. No, not just Vision, but there's a bunch of traits like Champion, and I don't know. There's a bunch that I think they could do more with that they just haven't. And I hope they go back and visit some of those because there's tons of things they could
Yeah,
do.
because it's kind of frustrating for a lot of cards to see that trait, how important that bold text is, just to not be able to really play off of
Yeah.
them.
I think people talk about Black Widow a fair bit. You know, her whole thing is
The preparations.
the preparations. Thank you. But there haven't been a ton of preparations since she came
No.
out, and she was in the first wave of
Yeah,
heroes.
I think only recently, maybe Psylocke. There's been like some more preparation cards, but only like one type of card in each aspect. So yeah, not a whole
Yeah,
lot to play with.
yeah. Cyclops, who we've talked about, mentioned on the show. He cares about the tactics cards, and I don't think there's been a ton of those since he came out. They introduce things for heroes sometimes, like preparations and tactics, and then don't carry it through. And I hope that's not the case with some of these other things, especially the pool aspect. They introduced that. That came in the last wave of heroes that I've released before this podcast. And I hope it's not just a one off joke meme aspect, because that would be a huge
Yeah,
letdown.
because again, we're not super excited about it. Like even
No.
in the pool aspect cards that we have, they're just kind of so hopefully they make it better, I guess.
I mean, in the article they mentioned when he was announced, Deadpool, when he was officially announced, they said they're treating this as the fifth aspect. That this wasn't just going to be a one-off joke. That they treating this as a fifth aspect. So I really hope they follow through on that, and I hope they build it out, because man, if it's just a one-off, it's so disappointing
Yep.
in my
Yeah,
opinion.
because they might as well make something of that. But
They might as well not have done it. Like, if you're not going to follow through, then that's really
yeah.
disappointing, in my
Yep.
opinion. But listeners, what do you think? You like the pool aspect? You hate the pool aspect?
Should we
Send us an
should we
email.
do a pool
Leave a comment.
aspect card for an
Should we
episode?
talk about the pool aspect? Are you guys excited? Let me know. But circling back to Captain Marvel, she only needs the one trait. She's Avenger. I don't think she needs to have anything else.
Yep, because there's a lot to play around with just that. And I think
Yeah.
you should play around with that. Take advantage of that Avenger trait.
I think she's fairly costed
Yes.
in terms of the
Yes.
power. I think she's super fun. You put her on the table, you're going to draw more cards, you're going to do a ton of damage or thwarting. Like, she's awesome.
And I love that also you're not limited to like you can only draw a card when you use her attack, No, it's just any basic power. Because I think there are some cards
Yeah.
out there where it's like, maybe you have a high thwart, but hey, you only get this benefit if you use the attack, and it's like, But no, you could just use either
Yeah.
or and you still get the benefit. You still reap the rewards.
Super flexible. Whatever you need, you're still going to draw the cards. I think, yeah, she's just really, really good. And 3 hit points is awesome. A lot of these really cool allies only have 2.
Yep.
So that's really good to see. She sticks around a little bit longer, which is awesome. And she's one of those allies that honestly I generally try to not block with. Like, if you only have 1 hit point left, I would rather use it and get that card draw and just have her discard than block. So that's one thing I really hope. I mean, allies are awesome. They're like insanely good cards throughout the game. They're probably the strongest card type. And the fact that you can, have 1 hit point left and just like eat a huge attack from Ronin, obviously we've talked about that in the past, is really good. I want more allies to come out that really disincentivize that jump blocking and make me feel like I want to maybe not keep them around because they're not evergreen allies, but I want to use their ability so much that I will use it instead of
Yeah,
blocking. So I think that's
like I
cool.
called you out for a reason, so and that kind
Yeah,
of
like, do
determines
something.
that determines like what a strong ally is that you want to keep them around. Even
Yeah.
if you're
And I think too many allies, we just assume they just have one fewer activation, right? Because you're just the last one is just
Yep.
blocking. Keiko, we should think about moving this to final thoughts and score, unless you have anything else to add about the power and the fun.
No, I think that's pretty much everything. Just solid card overall. Everything is straightforward. You kind of know what you want to do with her, so no, I think that's it. That's everything.
All right. Well, I'm going to go first. I'm going to let you have the last word on Captain Marvel. I'm going to give Captain Marvel an 8 out of 10. If this was a card in an aspect or a basic card, man, she would probably be in every deck. But that's okay. She's a signature ally, and signature cards should be a little bit better than the other cards, and they generally are. I think the art here is really strong. Not exceptional, but strong, including the little face in the corner, which is one of my pet peeves. If you want to spend this card instead of using it, it's a wild resource, which, if you're going to have anything down there, a wild is the best one because it can be whatever you need it to be. But the highlight here, obviously, is the 2 thwart, 2 attack. Those are both really strong stat lines for an ally, and the response is incredible. After Captain Marvel uses a basic power, you draw a card. That's just so good. 4 cost feels fair. I generally avoid 4 cost allies, but this is one I will put out often. So I'll say 8 out of 10. Honestly, I don't know what could be better except the fact that 4 does eat up your whole hand. but maybe that's nitpicky. I think 8 out of 10 is a really strong score for Captain Marvel. Keiko, what do you think?
So with 5 being true neutral, I think I'm gonna go ahead and give this a 10. You know, like yeah,
Wow.
like well, because
Is that your first 10,
it
Keiko?
might be my second. Very rare, very
Okay.
rare. But
Yeah, you're
my
stingy.
thing is, there's no like, it doesn't have to make me feel a special way, you know, to get that 10. If it checks all the boxes, and I don't really have any drawbacks that I can point out, then it gets that
Yeah.
10. You know, give your Uber driver 5 stars if he got you where you wanted. You know, but
Yeah, she'll get you where you want to
exactly.
go.
But like you said, 4 cost is fair. 2 to her basic powers with 1 consequential damage. 3 health is fair. An awesome
Yeah.
ability, solid art. Hell, even her flavor text, like from what I know of Captain Marvel, it kind of matches her like deadpan sarcasm. You know, that kind of deadpan humor. It kind of matches that too. So I think overall, yeah, checks all the boxes. Really, no drawback.
Yeah, I think wow, this might be your second one. I think you had a 10
Yeah, I
before,
can't
but
recall, but
you are stingy with your
I am. Yep,
scores.
they're always, even the ones I'm excited about. They're always kind of, they always can never get over that roof of 8, maybe.
Well, that's really awesome. I think Captain Marvel's really strong. I wish Lazy Titan was here to give his review. I'm sure he would say she's great because she is. But yeah, that's our thoughts on Captain Marvel. Do you like Captain Marvel, listener? Do you love Captain Marvel? Do you hate Captain Marvel? Leave a comment, send an email, winninghandpodcast@gmail. You know, hit our YouTube or Instagram at Winning Hand, and let us know what you think, because we think she's great, but maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. We love hearing from you all. So thanks for listening. Again, if you made it this far, if you listened to however many minutes this podcast is, close to an hour, then you probably like it, and you could spend 30 more seconds leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and leaving a review. Tell us what you think of the podcast. Hopefully you love it. That helps us climb the podcast ranks in Apple and gets us out into more people's phones. So we appreciate it. All right. Well, from me, Boom Guy, and my co-host Keiko, I will say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.
I am the captain now.